Right.
That's one of my favorite things about CTCT is that you guys offer barrier-free services to everyone. And I think that structure should be more promoted and flourish, but there's that awful idea of abuse services.
Yes.
And it sounds to me that they want you to prove that your services aren't being abused in any way.
Right.
But
We don't care.
yeah. Can we just talk about why we shouldn't care about what
Because
the fuck people do with stuff when they go home with it? You know?
People, like, if you need a bag of groceries...
Sorry, that's my language.
No, you're good. No, if you need a bag of groceries, you should get a bag of groceries. And you shouldn't have to prove to me that you don't make $25,000, right? Like, you shouldn't have to prove to me you need a bag of groceries. Come pick up your bag of groceries. Or we'll deliver your bag of groceries to you, and all we need is your address and your number so I can tell you when I'm there. And there's no reason why people should have to prove Social Security and all of these other identification forms, and you need all your tax forms you've ever had to prove that I don't have groceries this week.
A lot of the community members too, it's very interesting when we do provide these services, feel like that's stuff that they have to offer to us.
Yeah.
They'll try.
I remember specifically when we did Bless the Block, I was working with where people were pulling through to pick up toys, and they were like, we didn't know if we needed to bring our kids to prove to you that we had children, so they were like 5 kids in the backseat and stuff like that, but I was just like, no, we believe you. Here, have some Legos. Like,
right. And part of it is that, like, historically for marginalized community, for poor folks, for black folks, for, like, indigenous folks, for other people of color, right? Like, we've already put into this fucking system way more than people deserve, right? Like, we've given the system way more than the system ever deserved. At this point, you owe us. So I shouldn't have to prove shit to you. Give me what I asked for. Like,
and say that person could afford groceries for the week. By you giving them groceries, they now have money in their hand for something else that they weren't going to have.
100%. I think that, like, I grew up with a single mom, right? And so, like, yes, exactly that system. If somebody could give you this, then maybe this week is also my child's birthday, right? And so maybe I have the money now to get a cake. I have the money now to go buy a toy. And that's not for me to choose for you. I shouldn't tell you, no, you have to use your money on groceries, right? If there's other, we have access to these groceries. Like, why can't I just give the grocery to you? Why do you have to fill out a form? Why do you have to prove that you have 3 kids in your house? I don't care.
I just think that there's a big disconnect with people because I see people who are desperate online who have terrible takes on homelessness. They are bothered by the homelessness in their community. They don't want to see it. They see all homeless as blanket drug addicts.
Right.
And even if they are drug addicts, that they deserve, treatment too. But they are saying there's no services, or those people don't want to accept those services. And the problem with a lot of the services that are offered here in Louisville for the homeless is that there are too many barriers. You have to separate 100%. From your partner, you have to separate from your dog, you have to throw away all your stuff.
Yes.
You just etc.
You have to be sober.
You have to be sober, which I don't think a lot of people who have homes could do.
Right, 100%. Yeah, 100%, and we're not talking about that.
Yeah, and then...
How many drug tests do you give in the East End before people can buy properties?
Yeah, that's a good one.
None.
That is good,
okay,
exactly.
Great. Got it.
But then there's people like you guys who are offering services without barriers, but we're not funding into them. And I think that's like the intrinsic problem, that there's just this big fear that people with money think that poor people, or especially people of color, don't know what to do with the services or that stuff that you give them. And I just think that's why your narrative is so important, because 1, it's barrier free, and then 2, you guys are asking them what they actually need. You're not trying to guess. I'm sorry, I guess I'm just talking now about how awesome you are.
It's fun. Like, there's a blanket form of this, like, thought of that we're not going to do the right thing with the things that we have, but in our communities, we've always made more than what we have. And I think that we understand that. Right? Like, as poor folk, as black folk, as indigenous folks, people of color, as people who have been marginalized, right? Like, we understand that you get, like, the system gives you shit and you make flowers out of it, right? Like, you get crumbs and you make pie out of it. And I think that because we've been resilient in that way for so long, that the system honestly expects it. They're like, no, why would I give you more? Because if you made pie out of these crumbs, like, if I give you a pie, then what the fuck are you gonna do?
Right.
And it gets to that point. And I think it's like not like to get all out of crazy here, but like it's fear. It's really fear. I think all of it. I think any system that's being maintained that's not helpful for the majority is only being maintained because of fear of those top people, right? Like you're scared that if you gave CTCT $5 million, like what would we be doing out here?
Thanks for just going through that, because I just feel like there's so many people that doesn't connect with, or even that may be fans of you guys that don't understand why maybe you're not getting that funding, and really it's that bigger academia picture that they're trying to make you bend over backwards to prove.
I think it's the way that we come at this barrier-free access and the unapologeticness that we come at with like addressing things in general. There's a really big concern for if that was normal. Like if that's how nonprofit worked, I think our nonprofits could do a lot better, right? If we were working at barrier-free and working at unapologeticness and serving people, right? Like, because we have
Centering the margins.
Yes. If we did that, then that changes how the system works. And I love that like CTCT does that. Because it's necessary. It's necessary to do those things. It's necessary to break barriers, because if we don't, then who does?
It upsets the power structure that's happening over there, because what that whole system is saying is that Jill Holland knows better what should happen in the West End than the people in the West End. And that exact kind of mentality exists throughout the nonprofit world, that these big philanthropists and stuff like that who are basically just atoning for the sins of their companies, but they have a better idea because they're rich, because they've made it. They know the way that society needs to be formed to be able to say, like, okay, we need to put a library here, like stuff like that. But what I think our organization is saying is that no, that's not what it is. We need to be asking people directly what they need, what they want, investing in their autonomy, because the underlying notion of that supremacy within like the we give to you is that like you are inferior, right? Like we are able to dictate, we give you your 100%. Food, like we understand like what is going on in your community more than you, and that's just baseline racist.
And the key word there is autonomy, is giving people the ability to
and it's
to do for themselves.
For white people, that's hard because it's relinquishing control. And it's the control that they've had for 50 years over the West End. And that's why it's scary for a lot of people to move into spaces where we are creating, because we're upsetting the norm of saying you get to dictate how we are going to do things just because you're giving us money.
You guys are how a nonprofit should be run versus how we see nonprofits are run, in which, you know, CEOs profit off of the whole entire system. Like, I've heard terrible things about Wayside's food, to the point where they, you know, they purposefully cut corners so that the profits on top are still, you know, what they are. You know, and to understand, I didn't understand until recently that nonprofits, you know, they have that 80-20 split where only 20% is going to overhead. So it's just the idea of...
Supposed to.
Supposed to. Yes, key word is supposed to. But, like, to know that there are people out there that are purposefully... They want to keep people down so that their system can keep going on. Like, I know in Smoketown we've talked about affordable housing a lot. And they like to talk about the AMI and, you know, this and that. And they want it to be 30% AMI, but they want the cheapest house that they can build is still $150K. And that's not affordable for a 30% AMI when you find out that 30% AMI is only $30K a year. You know, and if you're making 50% AMI, you know, that's still 27. And just to put that into perspective, if you're making $30K a year, you're only making about $13 to $14 before taxes.
Been there.
And as we all know, minimum wage is $7, and we have like a huge amount of people here, particularly in the West End, who make less than $18,000 a year. So when you're talking about affordable housing and you're all like jazzed up about, you know, for me, just because I know Smoketown so well, it's East Breckenridge and the affordable housing units that they're putting in. We're still talking about houses that are going to sell for $150,000.
Why? Why is that a discussion?
Why is that a discussion? And why ultimately when we say, why can't you sell that house for less? Why can't it be less?
Can it be $1?
Why can't
it for $1?
Why can't it be $1? Like, why does that person need to spend $150K? And it's said that, oh, well, then we wouldn't be able to build the next house. And really what they're saying is that they wouldn't make a profit.
100%.
And it's just the insidiousness of that of nonprofits, I think, has soured on a lot of people. And so you guys are just such a fresh of breath air, you know? And I guess this, again, is just another speech about how I like you guys. But yeah.
I think a lot of time we get like advice on how to do the work that we're already doing, and we're like, that's not what we asked for. We didn't ask for you to tell us how to do stuff we've been doing.
No. Yeah, you guys don't need to be told how to be done. You just need some more money.
Yeah, but that plays into kind of the attitude we were talking about earlier, where it's like people think they know better, and it's something that we all have to let go of a little bit.
We're hoping that people will watch this and maybe drop some of those old predispositions you have about what you think a nonprofit should be, and think about either volunteering a bit of your time, a bit of your money, or any sort of resources that you may have to change today, change tomorrow. Beargrass Thunder is a huge supporter and believer of what they're doing. Barrier-free access to everything that they provide is so important, and we're not the ones that need to decide what people need. They're the ones who need to tell us. So Beargrass Thunder wants you to donate everything you got to CTCT. If you need a nonprofit, they're our number one on our list.